Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the Managing Director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're discussing Thailand's tourism dilemma and the retiree vice. And what are we talking about with the retiree vice? Well, there's a lot going on here. As we've noted in other videos, tourism has just substantially been truncated in the last 18, 20 or so months. And I think we're going to close out 2021 probably on a good note, where we're seeing Thailand reopen and we're seeing some tourists starting to come into the kingdom, but where it's really not looking, 2019, 40 million tourists. Even 2020, there were millions because there was that first quarter, the sort of the end of the 2019 high season, if you will, where we saw, tourists coming in. 2021 has been, for lack of a better term, abysmal. There's just been virtually, as far as it goes, it's infinitesimally small numbers of tourism compared to normal times. So 2021, not to put too fine a point on it, hasn't been that great from a tourism standpoint. Thailand is trying, or I think they want to encourage tourism, but then at the same time, and we've discussed this in many videos, there seems to be this, in my opinion, rather perplexing kind of paradigm where, encouraging high net worth VIP tourists and retirees and expats, and kind of discouraging, or it seems to be implicitly at least not encouraging, the average Joe kind of retiree or expat or tourist, going for this high-end quality over quantity. Well, Thailand made its money in the tourism sector on quantity, quite frankly. Yes, high-end tourists made up a certain segment of that, but, just letting in folks who, want to come to Thailand, enjoy Thailand, and spend their money and go on about their lives. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, perfectly, middle-class money spends the same, as far as I'm concerned. Now, what are we talking about with this retiree vice? Well, the way I see it, if Thailand doesn't make some really fundamental, well, perhaps not fundamental, but they don't make some moves in the right direction now, we could find ourselves in a real problem 5, especially 10 years down the road. What am I talking about? Well, I've just noticed in the almost 15 years I've been here that certain industries, and I think the Thailand sort of tourism, entertainment, whatever you want to call it, accommodation, hospitality sector, and this isn't necessarily for just short-term tourists. We're talking, places that rent to folks that come out here for months at a time, or even live here, retirees and such. Those places come to depend on a certain demography, and quite frankly, and I'm not trying to bring this up to be macabre to our retiree audience, but those folks eventually are no longer here. They pass away, or they may become elderly and, medically or physically incapable of remaining in Thailand. And essentially, time goes on and it phases out these retirees. Well, the presumption seems to be right now that simply opening Thailand is going to get more people coming in. You've got to get younger folks to get those older retirees. And retirees, to me, are very much a lifeblood. They're a very good part of the foreign sector that brings in foreign money in a kind of tourism kind of context. They may not, as time goes on, they may become truly permanent fixtures here, but in the beginning, oftentimes, they're kind of a more seasonal kind of traveler. Well, you have to build that. And you build that by being open to younger tourists who come to get to know Thailand and come to love it over time. And then they kind of get locked into coming here, for lack of a better term, locked in, quote unquote. Well, as it sits right now, I think the strategy of only focusing on high net worth individuals risks substantially destabilizing this retiree sector in the middle and longer term. Because if you're not encouraging broad swaths of people to come in, even younger folks coming in, broad swaths, then where's the pool of potential retirees going to be if they've never come to Thailand in the first place? So the point of this video is sort of, yes, retirees appear to be a very separate demographic all off on their own, and tourists appear to be a separate demographic all off on their own. But they really are all part of very much one singular demography that has a very massive impact over time if one were to kind of neglect maintaining that tourism base in a more long-term framework.